Welcome back to Smart Life. I'm Dr. Gina, and as you know, I hate the term self-esteem, and so does my next guest. Clinical psychologist Dr. Dathan Paterno is in the house to tell us why he finds no good reason why we should esteem ourselves. Welcome back to Smart Life, Dr. Paterno.
Good to see you, Gina.
Good to have you. Now, explain what is so... I mean, to me, I think our reasons for not liking the word self-esteem are different. Mine is because it's not measurable. Esteem is like this sort of, I see it like a mystical feeling thing. It's not quantifiable. It's not measurable. Some may claim it to be, but it's not measurable in the same way that, for example, accomplishment is. So talk to us a little bit about your feelings of the destruction by the use of the word esteem.
Yeah, well, one of the basic things in my practice is that I deal with a lot of people with problems with their ego, their self-worth, their self-esteem like I said, it's a term that I don't really like. And my reason for it is I think that we esteem ourselves too much in our culture. I think the narcissists have the market cornered on esteem. I don't think we're supposed to esteem ourselves. I think we're supposed to value ourselves. I think we're supposed to recognize our worth. And I think we're supposed to have a healthy self-concept. So I avoid the term esteem, but you're absolutely right that it is not quantifiable, and I think it's far removed from terms like accomplishment and things like that. But ultimately, I think healthy egos have self-respect and recognize our value as human beings, and therefore we can recognize other people's value and worth.
So if we aren't getting our sense of self-worth from teachers telling us we're great for no accomplishment, from coaches giving us a trophy for not winning, where are we supposed to go to get that intrinsic confidence that everybody needs to some degree?
Right. Well, I think the critical error that people make is that they try to look for esteem or worth or value from within itself. And I take a radically different view. I think that when you look at your own accomplishments or your own beauty or your wealth or anything like that, that we clamor for in our culture, I think you're missing out. What I really think we need to do is to question where should our value, or really where does our value come from?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't come from anything about us specifically. It comes from where we were made and by whom we were made. I really think that if we're cosmic accidents, if the Darwinians are correct, then we really don't have any value outside of our accomplishments and our beauty and our bank account. But if we were made in the image of God, if God has imprinted on us his value and his work, and if he has made such great sacrifices for us, such as his work on the cross, then I think we intrinsically, because of how he made us and what he made us to be, he has really put his price tag on us. And then we need to see ourselves in terms of our value based on what God has done, not what we have.
You know, this gets dicey for parents, Dr. Paterno, because as a parent, you know, we just heard all the downfalls we just talked about of for example, false compliments, and the whole you're worth something because you exist in the world and breathe air. We've learned that that was a huge mistake, that has destroyed the millennials in this generation, that's made them think that they deserve something for nothing. It's made them so fiercely jealous of other people, thinking that just because someone wins means I lost. It's turned them, you know, the studies are saying it's turned them not only into just big green monsters of jealousy with one another, but it's also turned them into feeling so fiercely competitive but without the accomplishment factor in there, that literally it's in some cases resulted in bullying or even you know, suicide and homicide. So if you take all of those things and you say, okay, we're not supposed to falsely compliment people, but then you're a parent and you want to build your children up and you want to be careful not to tear them down. And so how do parents know? I mean, because the truth of the matter is, Dr. Paterno, I don't have to look very far to compliment my own children. That's easy for me. And maybe it's not based on their accomplishments. Maybe it's just because they were just born and I just loved them because God gave them to me. Is that okay to say that to your kids? Do you understand my question?
Oh, yes. And I think that sums it up beautifully. We love our children because they are ours, because we co-created them, right? And that's all the reason that I need to love my children. Even if they are not beautiful, not smart, not talented, they don't make any money,
Mhm.
I still am going to love them and prize them and see them as incredibly valuable. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to praise them or I'm going to tell them that they're great when they're not. I think that that is an egregious error.
Mhm.
And I agree that we need to stop giving first place prizes to everybody. Okay. I think that movement is absolutely silly. When people stink at something, we should be honest with them.
Mm.
When they're good at something, we should be honest with them. We should reserve calling excellence out for people and our children, especially when they are excellent. And we need to be utterly honest with them. Otherwise, how are they going to assess themselves accurately?
Mhm.
Because children are very smart. They'll know when we're lying to them, they know when we're being honest with them and when we're deceiving them. So we do need to be honest with them about their strengths and their weaknesses.
And I think in turn it teaches them to be more genuine too, and their complimenting of their peers and others. But I want to get to this, and I don't want to go down into the gutter on this because there's a lot of detail here you and I could go into that's more political. Keeping it psychological and talking about the social experiment of the self-esteem movement that many like you and I called out from the very beginning, knowing it was a huge mistake. The body of literature on this from the psychobabblers of the world was acting like this was an imperative, that if we didn't start building the self-esteem of our children, they weren't going to be able to compete in the international marketplace. And in fact, just the opposite is true. And now they're admitting that, of course, without saying they said the exact opposite of that 20 years ago. But the point of the matter is this. There's a new social experiment called a new educational experiment being imposed by government called Common Core. What are the commonalities between the government imposing this experiment of Common Core on our children and the government imposing the very failed self-esteem movement on our children?
Wow, I could talk for ages about Common Core because I'm a local school board member.
Right.
And so our school board is going through this, and I'm the voice crying out in the wilderness about it. One of the things that I can't stand about it is that it's dumbing down a lot of things. It's a race to the middle.
Yeah.
And so kids who are truly excellent, kids who are striving for excellence, particularly in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and math,
Hmm.
they're dumbing that down so that everybody can meet the very minimum standards that are less than many other countries. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, in the end, we might feel good about ourselves that we've met the standards, but when they hit the real world, boy, it's going to hit them like a big slap in the face, and we're going to really be regretful. And the children, I believe, are going to be bitter that we did not hold them to higher standards and
Yeah.
allowed some children to fail, other children to do okay, some kids to succeed and really strive for excellence. I think this idea that we're going to try to make everybody equally functional and equally okay at things
Hmm.
is really a dastardly experiment, and I think it's going to hurt children and parents in the long run.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I see such similarities in the two efforts, which sound good sometimes on the surface. These things sound so good. I mean, who doesn't want to compliment kids? Who doesn't want to build the self-confidence of kids? But ultimately, these things just, as Dr. Saitowic said in Psychology Today, he said, you can't know heaven if you don't know hell. And I think
Right.
that's a good lesson. Sometimes children need to be let to fail. So thank you so much, Dr. Paterno, for being on the show.